Stat of the day: Chris Brown and Adele have the exact same birthday, but Chris Brown is 1 year younger. I now know that. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Chopping It Up with P. Scott. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today is Sunday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Glad you guys could spend your afternoon with us. I know most of y'all aren't. You guys are most likely going to listen to this after the fact on the audio platforms, and you can find us wherever you get your podcast on the audio streaming. If you want the actual video podcast, that's only available through Spotify, Facebook feed, or through YouTube this time, because I decided to be that way because I'm bougie like that. Big shout out to all my Apple Podcast listeners. I only show the Spotify link when I'm sharing to my socials, but the Apple crew, you guys always come through in the clutch. Y'all are always consistent. Spotifyers, y'all gotta be better than this, all right? But on today's episode, if you're not watching live, Jason Whitlock is doing Jason Whitlock things. I'll get my perspective on it. Will Pat Beverly get an 82-game suspension? That's via my dude, LaShawn Brown, who was on the show Tuesday. That's what he thinks is going to happen. OBJ to Miami, Claypool to the Bills. Justin Fields, will he return kicks? We'll talk about that. NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, NFC South, Ant-Man doing Ant-Man things. You can get the podcast or you can get the audio version where you get your podcast. I want to also give a boost to the Mac Truck podcast. You can get her podcast wherever you get your listening pleasure. Really strong female presence there. Also, the Houston Sports State Union podcast. Those two have been really good to me. It's only good to give vibes back out to them. So I want to touch on this Jason Whitlock thing for just a moment because I am somebody who does not like the person who is Jason Whitlock. I think that I need to start there. And I understand that there's an underlying racial tone with everything that he does and everything he stands for, and that he's not really well respected and well liked in the Black community. And I totally get it, and I understand why. But when it comes to this, not even just but I'm saying but because this is the talking point, is what happened with him, Caitlin Clark, and Simone Biles recently in his talk about Simone is like, she's just trying to be more popular and she's not as important. And those are two completely different things. And I try not to be over judgmental, but Whitlock does this perpetually. And in the Black community, and as somebody who's not a Black person, I know that I don't really have a leg to stand on with this, but I am going to give you my opinion as there is a little bit of validity in certain aspects of what he says, but he never seems to come across and do it the right way. Popularity and importance are two completely different things. So when he is telling you, and I watched a small snippet of it, I will be upfront with you and honest. I did not watch the entire transaction. I didn't watch the entire interview, but I did hear him say that Caitlin Clark is more important and more popular. Popular, yes. This has nothing to do with race, gender, or anything in between. What it does have to do with Caitlin Clark over the past 18 months is overtaking women's sports. And it's not, and to a degree, like not she's not taking over sports. The NFL remains king. I think we all know that. We're not blind to that fact. The NBA playoffs largely have been awesome. She's not hijacking that. But it is a talking point still, and we don't usually have that in women's sports. So more popular, yes. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that Caitlin Clark is more important than Simone Biles, that's where I think the issue is going to reside. Is We never Osaka with tennis and Simone Biles with gymnastics when they were at the height of their professions, right? They're representing their countries. And once they slip up, Simone Biles had even mentioned, like, I didn't think I'd come to this country. And that can seem hyperbolic to you. And I understand why. Well, what's going to happen? The thing is, have you met America? Have you seen how outlandish we can be as a people? Have you seen how if you don't look like us, if you don't think like us, and by us, I mean whatever you are, if you don't look like me or you in that individual scenario, how we can just be some of the cruelest people ever? So, yeah, there's a lot of fake death threats on Twitter. Like Matt Schaub used to get them when he threw 70,000 pick sixes for the Texans a year, like years and years and years ago. Well, there's a don't worry about it. There was a guy camped out on his lawn, dog. People are crazy. The individual person, I can trust if I know you. But people in general, I don't, because people are ridiculous. And that's kind of where I land out with this when it comes to Whitlock. He's like, well, she's not important. She's important, bro. Just because the Olympics only come around for once every 4 years, right? That's the metric that he's doing this by. Importance means eyeballs continuously. There's basketball games all the time. Yeah, there's more eyeballs on Caitlin Clark than there are on Simone Biles. But it does not mean that she is more important to an economy in one aspect, yes. And that is where everything is objective. To the economy of the NBA that has been starving to get on its feet forever, yes, she is important there. Important in the social construct of that girl looks like me. I can do that. You mean I can do that when I was told I wasn't able to? That importance cannot be measured. And that is where there's always this, it's not even a disconnect, but that is where a lot of Whitlock says whatever he says just to be, he's doing what he wants to do to be liked instead of doing what he needs to do, if that makes sense. To kind of go off on a bar for a moment, I listen to Bomani Jones religiously. I think he's one of the smartest people in whatever industry you want to call it, man. Like if you want to call it sports, you can call it sports. You want to call it podcasting, journalism, whatever umbrella and whatever label you want to put it as. Bomani Jones is one of the smartest people I've ever listened to. And he comes at it from all different angles. And it's kind of Jason Whitlock is almost like a parallel to what Drake is, where it's like, dude, you want people to like you, but nobody respects you, man. Like nobody respects what you do and what you stand for. And with Drake, I enjoy some of his music, right? I've listened to it. Man, I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't have Hotline Bling on my phone because I do. And you probably do too. Don't try to be that way. I got a lot more K Dot songs than I do Drake songs. But when it comes to the overall environment, is Drake just wants to be liked. Whitlock wants to be liked. And if it means bringing down this, and this was the exact same, and I'm hijacking this, but this is, Bomani makes a great point of what you would rather do is bring down those of your own kind to build up others than build up your own. And Drake's done that. And that's why in the industry, not a whole lot of respect. People will mess around with him because he's going to make bangers. He's going to make you money. Same thing right now when it comes to Whitlock is like he wants to just be liked by people, but nobody takes him serious though. So to wrap up this first conversation piece, when it comes to Whitlock, dog, like there are certain things in this particular moment of the whole Clark and Simone Biles piece. he is not wrong by saying that Caitlin Clark is more popular because she is. More important monetarily to a business and the WNBA and it finally getting off its feet? Yes. More important with everything else, the social construct and what Simone Biles has done? No. This man is completely inaccurate. Moving on. So Pat Bev threw a basketball at a fan, and LaShawn Brown was on the show on Tuesday. And he's one of the smartest dudes I know. Like, as far as we don't get a whole lot of people in this space, especially this the social media landscape of people who have a real beat on having context, and that man does. So I follow him fairly thoroughly. That sounds kind of odd to say out loud, but he's really funny. He's a Cleveland Browns fan. He's a Cleveland guy overall. And but he has these really these very quick ways of making fun of people without being directly uh belligerent, I guess is the best way to put it. So when Pat Beverly did this thing the other day and he throws a ball at a fan, he goes, he's getting 82 games. And I thought, well, man, that's not really that bad. But then I've had to recalibrate myself because I remember Malice at the Palace, right? You got Ron Artest jumping in the stands they're like went down. We're in a different society now. You can say the take might be too hot, but you can also look at what is his we just talked about importance in the previous segment, but really what does Pat Beverly bring? He's basically a shorter Draymond Green. We think he's a great defender, but all he is annoying. All he gets is technical fouls. I will say this, though. I mentioned this last year, and I will own my own. It's not a mistake necessarily, but I am willing to say that I've changed my narrative when it comes to Pat Beverly. And it was either last year or the year beforehand, technical foul. He grabbed the camera from a cameraman and was like, look at the footage. When I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with Pat Beverly. Like that was the moment where I changed from he's a clown to he's the type of clown that I'm down to get down with. I like Pat Bev. But he's never been so aggressive in what he does that it would warrant for him to be suspended for an entire year. But given what happened, a fan threw a ball at him and if this was dodgeball, this dude didn't dip, duck, dive, or dodge again. All five rules of dodgeball. The guy just didn't do any of them. Pat Bev, will he get a full year? I don't think so. And mostly it's because he's just not that important. You see these you see these landing points of who needs to be made an example of. Pat Beverly is not that guy. If Draymond, who's won a bunch of rings and has a lot of ejections and suspensions, if that guy's not going to get a year for actually doing harm, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If he's not getting ejected or suspended for an entire season, neither is Pat Beverly. It's probably going to, we've seen this in the NFL a lot where Roger Goodell will go over the top, right? He'll start a suspension way egregiously, and we're like, bro, what the are you doing? This doesn't warrant that. Or it's, hey, that's too serious. Why don't you? Between the NFL and NBA, they have this scale, right? The NFL love to over police and think that they're above the law. The NBA is more lenient altogether, mostly because they have 5 times as many games. Pat Beverly to me is not going to get an 82 game suspension. I wouldn't think. Now, if he does, based on his track record of just his Neanderthal basketball play, it could happen. I don't see it personally, but if it does, I wouldn't be surprised. But to see Pat Bev get 82 games, that would be absolutely bonkers to me. And honestly, the game needs less of Pat Beverly. No, it needs more of Pat Beverly on the sideline, not so much on the floor. Because I do think he's an overrated defender, kind of the same way with Draymond. I think they're overrated defenders, but they bring so much as far as their personality that we can never get rid of them fully. 82 games at the mark for he's also not good enough. He's not good enough to warrant 82 games. He's also not bad enough to warrant a lifetime suspension. It's just not going to happen. Moving on. OBJ to the Dolphins and Chase Claypool to the Bills. Now, these are two things that I know that Claypool to the Bills is a move that a lot of people are making fun of, and I understand why. It's Chase Claypool. I've seen some memes. I saw a really great one too, where it's like every fan base where you take a troubled player and you think, well, Josh Allen could get the best of him. We see this every time that we make a free agent moving sign, and whoever's watching right now, you've probably done this too. You get a free agent signing, go, that's the guy who's going to turn things around. Well, everybody's laughing at you. Buffalo did the exact same thing with Von Miller a couple of years ago. Coming off an ACL tear. Yes, he was in the Super Bowl. Yes, he was awesome, but he's also like in his mid-30s. Why are you thinking that not even just the millions, it's the signing itself? You think that's going to be good? Fair enough. Go ahead and shoot your shot and be the fan that you are. And Claypool is the only reason why I defend him is it's not because it's the Bills. It's not because it's Josh Allen, but I am going to put this, like, it's really difficult for me to do this with a straight face, is his quarterback situations have not been great wherever he's gone. And Claypool is going to get made fun of no matter what happens. But I do think if you're going to resurrect your career, Buffalo is the place to go regardless. We saw with Mitch Trubisky. Remember when Mitch Trubisky was backing up Josh Allen a couple years ago? And people said, oh my God, it's LOL. Why would you do that? And the Bills won the division. And then Pittsburgh re-signed him and said, oh, that's a great pickup. Great pickup. He learned behind Josh Allen. That's not how any of this goes. That's not how that works. That dude did nothing but resurrect his career and didn't do a damn thing. Nick Stevenson says, because you're an openly an openly closet Bills fan. You got to spell closet right, dog. Openly closet Bills fan. Oh yeah, because everything behind me, if you're watching live, doesn't matter. No, but what I'm saying is, like, when we talk about Chase Claypool, having somebody, it's mostly because he's going to get targets. He's going to get targets, right? There's nobody there. Nobody believes in Shakir. Nobody believes in Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel's the gadget guy, right? Chase Claypool can be the third or fourth best option and still put up probably like 40 catches, 600 or 700 yards, and like 4 touchdowns. And it's going to make like he has resurrected his career. And then he's going to go someplace else, and then he's going to fall off the map. Closet. Dude, Nick, you gotta fix your spelling, dog. Like, you are wild right now. But no, I don't think it's going to be a huge, the past participle of closet. God. Nick, I already gave Stevenson his plug on the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. I'm going to do it again because he's here in the building with me. Go follow the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. I'll put the link in the description later. But no, like, Claypool is not a game changer, but this is the place. He's going to get the targets, and he's going to be able to put some yards up, some touchdowns, and then somebody is going to like reinvest in him again, which is fine because it's a 1-year deal and that's totally good. When it comes to Miami with OBJ, I have been asked a couple different times, does it matter? No. Here is why it doesn't matter though. It's not because of OBJ. It's because of Tua. OBJ has shown you, y'all going to get mad at me, and I understand it. OBJ has been one of those dudes over the past basically 10 years. When he's right, he's right. He's not right all the time, but he doesn't have to be. He's essentially the third option. So statistically, $8 million a year for a wide receiver looks like it's a lot. But when you think about how much these other guys are getting paid, the guys like Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, who are in their 30s, getting paid $30 million a year. Okay, well, why don't you just go get OBJ? It's $8 million a year. So it's a quarter of the money, and you're probably going to get a quarter of the production. I'm sorry, at what point of the business line does that not make sense? He's going to be fine. Also, he's got to recoup some of that money because of that bonkers deal that he signed with the Rams, where most of his money was in crypto. Man's got to make up for it somehow. Also, maybe Tyreek Hill misses some money because of all that child support, dog. Like, ew. That man be out here doing all kinds of things. But OBJ to the Dolphins, to me, it doesn't move the needle enough for me to think that I already believe that Buffalo is going to be on the outside looking in from the playoffs anyways. So the addition of Odell does not mean that I think the Bills will automatically be booted out of the AFC playoff picture. Mostly because I don't think they're winning that division. And if you don't win that division, good luck anyways. The AFC North is ridiculous. The AFC West has gotten a little bit better. The AFC South has gotten a little bit better. So when it comes to Odell being signed to the Dolphins, he's going to have one of those years where he's probably going to have 40 or 50 catches, six to 700 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. I don't care. That's fine. You're going to get that from any other wide receiver other than Waddle and Hill as a third option, basically. So he doesn't move the needle, but Tua is the guy that I'm worried about. And it's not even just because it's Tua, it's because it's not Patrick Mahomes. We go through this all the time on this show. If it's not Patrick Mahomes, why the hell are you paying any quarterback $50+ million a year? It is because you're scared. When you get into that GM spot, that owner spot, we can't lose this guy. It's why Atlanta did what they did. Well, it's not exactly why Atlanta did what they did. We'll get into Atlanta a bit later. But if Miami doesn't pay Tua, it just shows that they know that we can get this from anybody. And you should be able to think that you can get 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns from just about anybody. Because spoiler alert, you can get around those numbers pretty close with just about anybody. So the Odell signing to me does not put the Dolphins over the top. It's just it's another cool stat pad. It's another guy for your fantasy league that you're going to be super excited about. Ultimately will let you down, either because those other two guys are going to be so high end or because Odell's going to get hurt. It's an exciting signing, but it doesn't mean anything long term, or doesn't mean that it puts the Dolphins in any position where they can win. So it's like the Bills right now. They have lost so many pieces, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then Stephon Diggs. I don't care that you got Chase Claypool. This is really one of those moments where it's a resurrecting career stop for Chase. If you can be at least relevant, you can get another contract. Awesome. Doesn't mean anything though. Moving on. Justin Fields has been reported to be able, not even to be able to, because I know he's able to, but he's in the works to return kicks for Pittsburgh. That's not happening. I don't like to be hyperbolic. I don't like being the guy who says nothing ever will happen or nothing ever won't happen. You might see it in practice because in practice nobody really hits at each other. Like it's just a very fluid, it's a lazy river. NFL practices now by and large are a lazy river. If you see Justin Fields return a kick or a punt in an actual football game, even preseason, I'm not even counting that, in an actual football game, then I'll go ahead and just shut this thing down. I don't see it happening. It's a nice story. It's not even a nice story. It's actually completely disrespectful to Mr. Fields, if I do say so myself. I don't see him being this guy that's going to return. Yes, he's one of the fastest people on the football field. I'll give you that. And maybe it's only for that. But like I said, it's only going to be in practice to kind of emulate the speed of what's going to happen with these new kickoff rules. He's not actually going to be a kick returner or a punt returner. Taysom Hill doesn't even do that. And we think that he's a lesser quarterback than even Justin Fields. And I believe that Justin can do what he does. But by and large, the overall consensus is Justin Fields, word association, not a quarterback. Taysom Hill is not one either. Gets paid like he is. Definitely was beforehand. But even they're not using him in that. Justin Fields is not returning kicks in the NFL. I'm willing to put a good amount of money on that. I never say never, so I'm not willing to go way outside the line. But I am just saying it's not going to happen. So Chris Fisher had asked me, what about Lam McConkey for rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year? Wide receiver by the Chargers. And I started thinking to myself, it's like, maybe because of targets. But when we really get into this offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, MVP, things like that, there's a preconceived notion of who are going to be your top 3 or 4 anyways. So if you're not already there, it's almost like the actual college football playoffs, if you want to put it in that perspective, is if you lose early, then you still have a chance, right? Because there was a 14 playoff. And if you're a top 4 to 7 team, you lose early, you can still get back into that top 4. Kind of like with McConkey is if he starts off slow because he's a rookie, but then he just blows the church doors off of his statistically with the Rams, okay, then maybe he has a chance. Or the Chargers, excuse me, then maybe he has a chance. But you're also going up against guys like Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr. It's going to be really difficult for Ladd McConkey to be able to grab that offensive rookie of the year from any one of those guys. Because when you look at it, like I said, there's a preconceived notion, there's already a bias built in to who is supposed to be in that spot. So Caleb Williams is probably going to win rookie of the year as long as he doesn't pull one and Aaron Rodgers and get hurt 62 seconds into the season, or throws for 3 times as many picks as he does touchdowns. He's probably going to win rookie of the year. Or if Marvin Harrison Jr. has, an 11, 1,200 yard season, something like that. For McConkey to be able to even be in the stratosphere, Rome Odunze as well. Like as long as Odunze and Harrison have relatively close stats and it's over 1,000 yards, if it's not Caleb, it's going to be one of those 2 guys. Ladd is going to have to blow the absolute church doors off of everybody. He's going to have to essentially be in almost MVP status to be in the consideration for offensive rookie of the year, just because the blueprint has been laid. We've already seen the hype about Caleb Williams. We've seen the hype around Marvin Harrison Jr. and Odunze. It's not going to happen unless those guys all barely hit 1,000 or even get less than 1,000 yards, single digit touchdowns. McConkey's just going to have to be absurd the entire year. Do I see it happening? No. No, he's going to get targets because Herbert's going to sling the rock around all the time. But we also look into your team record. And that's usually more of a quarterback stat. But Herbert's been kind of up and down, mostly a 500 quarterback. So if he puts individual numbers up and the Chargers make the playoffs, which I don't see happening, there's a chance. But Chris Fisher, I'm sorry to say, I don't think he wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, even if he's great. The chips are just stacked against him, dog. We were also asked the NFC South and what's going on with them. Mostly the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Falcons are actually taking this thing on about as well as you can. And I had LaShawn Brown on Tuesday, and we kind of went over the Kirk Cousins pick and then drafting Michael Penix doesn't make sense. And we had some conflicting points of view, if you will. But I still think that Atlanta overall did the right thing. And what their management staff is doing, their coaching, their GM, everybody else is, we're trying to get an offensive unit. That's why you got Drake London. That's why you got Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, and then you drafted Michael Penix. Like, you did it all 4 years in a row. You did something to build your offense. And it hasn't come to fruition because you haven't had a quarterback. And now you have 1.5 quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins is the dude who's going to get, he does, man. He's got to be one of the number one homies. I made this argument with LaShawn the other day. Him and Derek Carr got to be the best homies ever. Everybody wants to play for them, but nobody wants to win anything. They just want to be happy and get money. Just like those two guys. They want to be happy and get money. And guess what? Everybody's happy and everybody's getting money. So what's going on with Atlanta, I think that they are doing what they're supposed to do. That division is still trash. The Panthers are still trash. The Saints defensively are still good. Offensively, I don't know. The Buccaneers, same thing. Atlanta to me is right where they need to be. And they did the stepping stones of what they're supposed to do. And y'all can clown the Michael Penix thing. And I mentioned this a couple days ago. Michael Penix to me is not a bad choice. I know he's old and we always throw the old quarterback under the bus, but he's not Brandon Weeden. He's not 29 years old. He's 24. And that's when we look at, we all want to get the quarterback who's going to play until they're 40. And Kirk Cousins, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirk Cousins is what, 36? And y'all still want to cape up for this dude? Like he's one of the better quarterbacks? Statistically, sure. Why not? Fantasy-wise, sure. Why not? But do you believe in him at all? No. But you build him up to be better than dudes like Dak Prescott. You build him up to be better than dudes. This is going to hurt, and some of you may not agree with it, but some of y'all be building him up to be better than Daniel Jones. One season. My point is that when it comes to Atlanta, what they're trying to build, sometimes you have to overpay for people. And I made this exact same argument when it came to the Jaguars signing Christian Kirk. He signed a bonkers deal. Why would the Jaguars overpay? Sometimes you have to overpay and then win and then get other dudes to come to you. Atlanta is doing that because they had the salary cap and they had the high draft pick. So like, let's go get Kirk. He's only going to play you signed him to 3 years. He's probably playing 2. So let's get Kirk. Let's get Raheem Morris and get an actual quarterback. Go ahead. It's okay if we have to pay both quarterbacks. When you look at it in its entirety, it's not that it's a lot of money, But if you can do the whole grooming thing, because that's what fans love to say, right? We're grooming him. We're going to groom Michael Penix. It doesn't always work. Neither does throwing him to the fire because this whole thing is a crapshoot. I'm going to go to the chat real quick. Um, Oh, thank you. Oh, so Jaquan just stopped in. He says, stopping by, continue to build and provide the great content you do. Kirk is playing professor. I appreciate you, Jaquan. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, bro. I always appreciate you and everybody from the Sports Talk with Friends Network stopping in to drop your thanks and your hellos. He is supposed to play professor, but we've seen this beforehand where the guys who we think are supposed to mentor don't want to mentor. Brett Favre didn't want to mentor Aaron Rodgers. That's why he flirted with retirement forever. Ben Roethlisberger, same thing. Aaron Rodgers, same thing with Jordan Love. Just because we've put into the universe that just because you're old means you want to mentor. No. If you were considered one of the best at what you do, you're not mentoring anybody. This is my job and you're going to have to take it from me. I don't understand why that's so difficult for people to understand though. But to get back to Atlanta, no, I think that they're going to be fine. The whole NFC South is still cheeks. There's nobody in that division that scares me. So for me, Atlanta doing what they've done and kind of stair step the entire process, I'm okay with because we laughed at them. We laughed at Atlanta when they got Kyle Pitts because like who are you going to throw the ball to it? Well, now you have somebody. Drake London was the same thing. Bijan, why'd you get a tight end in the top 5, a running back in the top 10? Like, why would you do all this? It's an offensive league now, though. And now you at least have it in place where you can be better offensively. Let Penix just chill. I'm not saying sit for 2 or 3 years because that's what we as fans in the old head era want to say. Let him sit for a couple of years. He'll figure it out. I'm sorry. We're recycling coaches every 4 to 18 months now. There's no way that you're going to let him sit for a couple of years. That is not how any of that works. And it's definitely not going to be how Kirk wants to run things. He wants to play as long as he can because that he's quote unquote that dude. But Penix is like, yo, I'm on the 24, dude. That clock is ticking. Let's get it going. So before we hang it up, I was also asked Zeke to Dallas. What does that mean? And if you guys have any more questions, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. We had a couple. We had some good content today. I appreciate it. Again, you can always find us on the audio stream, or not the audio stream, but the audio platforms wherever you listen to your podcast. You can get us quite literally everywhere. Video is just through Spotify or the Facebook feed, but you can find us on YouTube as well. Like, share, subscribe, smash those 5-star reviews. Tell your friends about hide your kids, hide your wives. But the last talking point was Zeke to going back to Dallas. Does it matter? What does it mean for him and everything in its entirety? It's another one of just, it's a move. It's just a move. You know, there's every year we get these moves between the NBA. It doesn't matter what sport that you follow, but there's always going to be a free agency or a trade move that gets you or your fan base excited. And 99.99966665555% of the time, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle at all. It's just something new. It's almost like when you're in a failing relationship and you're like, well, why are you looking at here? It's like, it's not better. It's just different. And that's what Zeke going back is, even though it's the same. It's like your ex is coming back. Oh, I miss her so much. You don't really miss her. It's just a name that you know. You know, it's such a wild perspective where people saying it means so much where Zeke is coming back. It doesn't mean anything. He's not the same guy that he was 6 years ago. It's not the same offensive line. It's not the same collective wide receiving group. It doesn't matter. It's a feel-good story for Dallas Cowboys fans that still like Zeke. He's not going to, he might have a better statistical year than he did last year, but he's not going to be in the MVP discussion. He's not going to be comeback player of the year. The Cowboys consistently win double-digit games every season, it feels like. He's not going to move the needle 3-4 games a year. It's just not going to happen. So it's nice that he's back if you're in that space and you occupy the fandom of being a Dallas Cowboy fan. Then cool. Good for you. But he's not doing anything special. Right? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and hang it up for the day. Once again, so if we made any boo-boos today, you can reach out to the show. I have the email address at the very bottom. It's not if you don't agree. If you disagree with my take, that doesn't count. If you don't like my take, that doesn't count. But at the very bottom, going through the scroll, I do have my email address, which is choppinitup@gmail.com. There's no apostrophes. It's just CHOPPINITUP with pscott@gmail.com. If I have made too many boo-boos, you can go ahead and send me an email and you will be entered in a raffle to win some cash prizes. But like, share, subscribe, smash those 5-star reviews. Spotify and actually the Facebook page is really where we got the most traction. So if you like, share from that platform, that'd be most beneficial to me. Stay up, stay blessed. We'll catch you guys on the next one.